Welcome back to another Tesifix Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're tackling the Cybertruck's camera system.
Oh, yeah.
And let me tell you, this thing's got more cameras than a reality TV star's mansion.
That's a great analogy.
It does. It really does.
It really does have an impressive array of cameras, you know? It's not just about backing up safely anymore.
Right.
It's about creating this, fully aware vehicle.
Okay. So let's break down this camera network.
Okay.
We've got the usual suspects, rear camera on the tailgate, front camera above the grill.
Right.
But then
Yeah.
it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Cameras in each door pillar.
Yeah.
Above each front wheel,
Right.
even one peering down from the windshield.
It's wild.
Yeah, it is.
It's like the Cybertruck has eyes everywhere, constantly scanning its surroundings. And this is where things get fascinating. Because this comprehensive camera system isn't just about giving you a fancy multi-angle view on the touchscreen.
Right.
It feeds into Tesla's driver assistance systems.
Okay, so when we talk about features like Autopilot,
Yeah.
these cameras are the foundation.
Exactly.
They're providing the visual data that the system uses to make decisions.
It's the eyes of the Cybertruck. It's helping it see and understand the road ahead.
Now,
Yeah.
let's start with the rear-facing camera.
Sure.
The classic backup buddy.
Yeah.
Everyone knows this one. You shift into reverse,
Yep.
and the touch screen displays what's behind you.
Right.
You even get those driving path lines that adjust as you turn the wheel.
Yep. Yep.
But here's where the Cybertruck takes it a step further.
Okay.
You can actually choose to have the rear camera feed displayed all the time,
Yeah.
even when you're not reversing.
This is a big one.
Especially helpful when the tonneau cover is closed.
Oh, for sure.
Otherwise, you'd be driving a giant metal brick with zero rear visibility.
Exactly. It's like having a virtual window into the bed of the truck. But of course, it's crucial to remember that the camera is just a tool.
Absolutely.
You still need to physically check your surroundings before backing up.
Speaking of checking your surroundings, let's move to the front-facing camera.
Okay.
This one sits above the grill, keeping an eye on the road ahead.
Think about this for a second.
Okay.
The front camera's feed, combined with the data from all the other cameras, creates a 360-degree awareness system.
So it's like giving this Cybertruck superhuman spatial awareness.
It really is.
It can see everything around it,
Yeah.
not just what's directly in front.
And this information isn't just used for basic driving.
Right.
This is what allows features like autopilot and automatic emergency braking to function.
So those cameras are doing a lot more than just showing you what's around the truck.
Absolutely.
They're actively helping to keep you safe.
They're constantly analyzing the environment, looking for potential hazards, helping the Cybertruck react accordingly.
Okay, now let's get to a camera that's sparked a lot of conversation.
Right.
The cabin camera. This one sits above the rear view mirror.
Right.
And it's got a dual purpose.
It's keeping an eye on the driver, making sure that they're alert and attentive. But it also plays a role in enhancing active safety features.
So it's not just about catching you dozing off.
Right.
It's also about helping the car react more effectively in critical situations.
For example, if the cabin camera detects that the driver is looking away from the road, the forward collision warning system might react faster or with more urgency.
It's like having a second set of eyes constantly monitoring the driver's behavior.
Yeah.
And adjusting the car's safety systems accordingly.
Exactly. And there's another aspect to the cabin camera that's worth mentioning.
Okay.
Sentry mode live camera.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This one's pretty cool.
So you can actually view the feed from the cabin camera remotely through the Tesla app.
So you can check in on your truck from anywhere in the world.
Right.
See what's happening inside.
Right.
Potentially even capture footage of any suspicious activity.
And it's important to emphasize that this feature is entirely opt-in.
Okay.
You have complete control over whether or not you want to enable Sentry Mode Live Camera.
So it's all about giving you choices.
Right.
And control over how these features are used.
Obviously.
Now, I know what some folks are thinking. All these cameras, all this data, where's it all going?
Right.
But let's address that head on.
Okay.
Tesla is pretty transparent about its data collection practices. They have a detailed privacy policy outlining how they handle data from their vehicles.
Yeah.
And here's the key point.
Okay.
The images and video from the cabin camera stay put.
Right.
Unless you specifically enable data sharing.
And even then,
Yeah.
data sharing is limited to very specific scenarios,
Okay.
like safety critical events or diagnostics. And it's important to highlight that the data from the cabin camera isn't linked to your Cybertruck's VIN.
Okay.
It's all about protecting your privacy.
So while the idea of a cabin camera might initially raise some eyebrows,
Sure.
it seems like Tesla has implemented safeguards to minimize the risks.
And remember, you always have the option to adjust your data sharing preferences in the car's settings,
Okay.
giving you full control over how your data is used.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground already with these cameras.
Yeah, we have.
But there's still more to explore,
Uh-huh.
like how to keep those lenses clean and the importance of camera calibration.
Absolutely.
And we'll dive into those details in the next part of our deep dive.
We will.
So stay tuned for that.
Looking forward to it.
All right, so we've talked about the Cybertruck, seeing the world around it.
Mm-hmm.
But what about keeping those eyes clean?
Oh, yeah.
We all know a smudged lens is like wearing blurry glasses.
Absolutely. Camera maintenance is essential, especially with a system this sophisticated. Think of it like this. If the cameras can't see clearly, the features that rely on them won't work as well.
So what's the best way to keep these lenses sparkling?
The owner's manual recommends good old-fashioned water
Okay.
and a microfiber cloth.
Simple but effective.
Yeah, no fancy cleaners needed.
Any tips for those of us who live in areas with, like, dramatic weather?
Yeah, condensation can be a culprit.
Yeah.
The owner's manual suggests preconditioning the cabin to help dry out the cameras.
So crank up the heat and let those cameras defrost.
Exactly.
Speaking of keeping things running smoothly, let's talk about calibration.
Ah, yes, calibration. This is crucial for making sure all those cameras are working together harmoniously.
It's like tuning an orchestra. Each instrument needs to be in sync to create beautiful music.
Exactly. And in this case, the beautiful music is a Cybertruck that can safely navigate its surroundings.
So how does this magical calibration happen?
The Cybertruck is pretty clever.
Okay.
It typically calibrates its cameras automatically as you drive.
No need to schedule a special appointment or anything.
Usually not. It usually takes about 20 to 25 miles of driving for the cameras to calibrate themselves.
And are there any tips for making this process go faster?
Driving on straight roads with clear lane markings can help.
Okay.
It gives the cameras a consistent set of data to work with.
Makes sense. So basically, a nice highway cruise is the ideal calibration scenario.
Exactly. But if the calibration process seems to be taking longer than usual, say over 100 miles, it might be worth scheduling a service appointment just to check things out.
Good to know. And what about situations where you might need to manually recalibrate the cameras?
If a camera gets physically shifted,
Right.
like after a repair, or if the windshield gets replaced, you'll need to trigger a recalibration.
So it's like resetting the baseline so the cameras can relearn their surroundings.
Precisely, and the owner's manual has clear instructions on how to do this.
Okay, so we've covered cleaning and calibration. Now let's dive into some of the specific features that rely on these cameras.
All right, let's start with the big one.
Yeah.
Autopilot.
This is the feature that everyone associates with Tesla,
Yeah.
right? The car practically drives itself.
Well, not quite driving itself. Autopilot is a driver assistance system, not a fully autonomous driving system.
So it's like having a co-pilot who's really good at staying in the lane and maintaining a safe distance from other cars.
That's a good way to put it. Autopilot relies heavily on those cameras to perceive the world around the Cybertruck.
It's using the visual data to make decisions about steering, braking, and accelerating.
Exactly. And this is where the camera system's comprehensiveness really shines.
Okay.
The more cameras you have, the more complete picture of the environment you get.
It's like having eyes in the back of your head and on the sides and everywhere else.
And that's crucial for a system like Autopilot. It needs to be aware of everything that's happening around the vehicle to make safe and informed decisions.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about Autopilot's capabilities and limitations.
Rightfully so. It's a powerful technology, but it's important to remember that it's not perfect.
And that's why Tesla stresses that drivers need to stay attentive and be ready to take control at any moment.
Exactly. Autopilot is a tool to assist the driver, not replace them.
And that's where the cabin camera comes back into play, right?
Yeah,
It's monitoring the driver to make sure they're not getting complacent.
precisely. The cabin camera is like a watchful guardian,
Okay.
making sure the driver remains engaged even when autopilot is active.
It's like having a driving instructor in the passenger seat constantly remind you to keep your eyes on the road.
And that's a good thing, especially when you're dealing with a technology as sophisticated as autopilot.
Now let's move on to another feature that utilizes those cameras in a clever way. Sentry mode.
Ah, yes, Sentry Mode. This is Tesla's security system, and it's been getting a lot of attention lately.
So how does it work? Is it just recording everything that happens around the Cybertruck?
Well, it's a bit more nuanced than that. Sentry Mode uses the cameras to detect potential threats.
Like someone trying to break into the truck or vandalize it?
Exactly. If Sentry Mode detects suspicious activity, it starts recording and can even sound an alarm.
That's pretty cool. It's like having a virtual guard dog protecting your Cybertruck.
And the beauty of Sentry Mode is that it's always on.
Okay.
Even when the car is parked and locked.
So it's constantly watching over your vehicle.
Right.
And what about those privacy concerns? Is Tesla storing all this footage somewhere?
Well, the footage from Sentry Mode is stored locally on a USB drive that you need to provide.
So it's not being uploaded to some cloud server or anything like that?
Not unless you specifically choose to do so.
So you have complete control over what happens to that footage?
Exactly. And you can even set Sentry Mode to only activate in certain situations, like when the car is parked in a specific location.
So you can tailor it to your specific needs and comfort level.
And that's really the key takeaway here.
Yeah.
Tesla is giving you a lot of control over how these camera-based features are used.
It's about empowering you to make choices that align with your preferences and priorities.
And that's a trend we're seeing more and more in the automotive industry as technology advances and vehicles become more connected.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the Cybertruck's camera system. We've talked about the practical side of things, like keeping the Cybertruck's cameras clean and calibrated.
Right.
But there's a bigger picture here, isn't there?
Absolutely. The Cybertruck's reliance on cameras represents a fundamental shift in how we think about driving.
Yeah, it's not just about mirrors and blind spots anymore.
Right.
It's about a vehicle that's constantly aware of its surroundings in a way that was unimaginable just a few years ago.
Think about the implications for safety.
Yeah.
The Cybertruck can react to potential hazards before a human driver even has time to process them.
That's a bit mind-blowing when you stop to consider it.
Yeah.
It's like having a co-pilot with superhuman reflexes.
Exactly. And that has the potential to save lives.
Right.
But it also raises some important questions about the role of the driver.
Right. If the car is doing so much of the seeing for us, do we become more complacent?
Right.
Less engaged in the act of driving?
It's a valid concern and one that Tesla is clearly aware of.
Yeah.
Given the emphasis on driver monitoring and the warnings about remaining attentive even when using autopilot.
It seems like we're entering a new era where the line between driver and passenger is becoming increasingly blurred.
It's a fascinating evolution.
It is.
And one that's going to require us to adapt our thinking about what it means to be behind the wheel.
So what does all this mean for the future of driving?
Right.
Is the Cybertruck a glimpse of a world where cars are essentially self-aware?
It's certainly a step in that direction.
Okay.
The Cybertruck's camera system is so advanced that it's almost like the vehicle has a rudimentary form of vision.
And that vision is only going to get more sophisticated as technology continues to evolve.
Imagine a future where cars can communicate with each other.
Yeah.
Sharing data about road conditions, potential hazards, even traffic patterns.
It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It does.
But it might not be that far off.
It's an exciting time
Indeed.
to be witnessing these advancements. But it's also crucial that we have thoughtful discussions about the ethical and societal implications.
We need to ensure that these technologies are used responsibly.
Right.
And that we as drivers and passengers understand the changing dynamics of our relationship with these increasingly intelligent machines.
Well said. Ultimately, the future of driving is in our hands.
It is.
And it's up to us to shape it in a way that benefits humanity.
That's a great note to end on.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the Cybertruck's camera system.
My pleasure.
It's been a truly eye-opening experience.
It has been fascinating.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Keep those cameras clean.
Absolutely.
And your minds open to the possibility.
Indeed.